One night I was sitting on my living room couch, watching Home Alone on TV. I was, in fact, home by myself at the time. Let's get to the part of the film where the McAllister's home is getting broken into. This is a classic movie, so I'll assume most of you know how far into the film I was. It seemed like that night was full of coincidences, because as I was watching a house getting broken into on television, I heard the window right next to me shatter. I turned to see a figure wearing all black and a ski mask standing outside the now broken window. I don't think he expected anyone to be there. His eyes sort of had that surprised look in them when he noticed me sitting on the couch. Suddenly, I felt someone wrapping their arm around my neck. Within seconds, they had me in a headlock. I couldn't even speak, and I had trouble breathing. It wasn't the intruder at the window because I saw him standing there, watching me being choked by what I assumed to be his accomplice. Shit, I thought you said no one would be here. Well, he's gonna be out in a second. It's a good thing you're wearing your mask. I struggled against my attacker. I had to think fast before I lost consciousness. I created separation between his arm and my throat. I then elbowed him in the face, which made him release me. As soon as he let go, I ran, unlocking the front door and booking it to the street with my pajamas and socks on. The whole time, I heard footsteps behind me, but I never turned around. It was a good thing I was on my high school track team growing up, because I managed to outrun him and hid behind a tree for about 20 minutes, and then cautiously made my way back to my house. Once I was confident they were gone, I grabbed my phone and called the police, who arrived about 10 minutes later. They first searched the entire home to see if the thieves were truly gone. Their search turned up nothing. I gave them my statement, and they put up that yellow tape outside the shattered window. The following morning, I called a window repair service, and they fixed my window in less than 3 hours that same day. Over the next few weeks, I plan on installing a door camera and an alarm system. I don't ever waste my money on stupid things, but I think this is a smart investment. Crime in my area has only gone up in recent years, and it seems that the violence that has plagued the inner city for years now is making its way to the suburbs. Looking back now, I find it amusing that a scene in a movie played out in almost the same way in real time. I guess I should pull out all the stops and rig a flamethrower to the door. I've shared a story on here before about the time my friend Chris and I had a close call on an isolated back road on Rube Hill. We nearly drove into a booby trap and were chased away by a truck. But when it comes to the topic of unwelcomed guests, there is another story from my past that I think fits the bill. I was in my sophomore or junior year of high school when this occurred. My brother, John, had recently broken up with his girlfriend, Amanda. They liked each other and tried to make things work, but they just weren't compatible. The best way I can sum it up with any kind of brevity is that John would swear like a sailor, and Amanda would literally slap anyone who swore in front of her. Yeah, even me, like on the second day I met her. She was very religious, and my brother was very indifferent toward religion. So this, among many other things, led to their inevitable breakup. It wasn't a hostile or angry split, but John was the one that broke it off. It was a Saturday morning. I woke up later than usual and went straight to the basement and began playing Halo 3. My mom called me upstairs and informed me that Amanda had gone missing and her parents were very worried. The police eventually knocked on our door, and my parents and John answered their questions. Stephen, who was a mutual friend of John and I, even hopped in his car and drove around to see if maybe she was out and about, wandering around. With all of this going on, I decided to do my part and took off on foot looking for her, knowing full well I wouldn't stumble upon her strolling down the street, but I wanted to help in any way I could. Maybe I would actually beat the odds and find her. After about 30 minutes, my phone rang. It was my mom, and she asked me to come back to the house. The rest of the story I learned after everything had settled. When John was searching for Amanda, he spotted her car parked up the road from our house. There was no one inside. Turns out, she had snuck out of her house while her parents were still sleeping. Amanda was found shortly after John spotted her car. She was okay, but my mom didn't want to talk about the rest. So I asked Steven, who had gotten back to my house quicker and already had the entire lowdown from my brother. Amanda had left her parents' house early that morning and just drove around for a bit. My brother always locks his car doors, but the back hatch on his car wasn't a power lock. It had to be done manually, so he sometimes neglected locking it. Well, I guess Amanda had opened up the hatch and crawled into the car, retrieving our garage door opener. We do shut our big garage door. However, the door inside the garage that leads into the house is always left unlocked. There was just one key and 2 high school-aged boys who couldn't be bothered with curfews, so my parents usually left that door unlocked, so we didn't have to call them at 1 in the morning to be let inside. And yes, we have since had keys made so that we could properly lock up. While everyone was looking for her, the officer who spoke with my family asked if she could search the house. The thought of her being inside our house had never occurred to my parents, but the cop's instincts were spot on. She even decided to check John's room first, and it wasn't long before she found Amanda curled up under the covers of John's bed, completely naked. Her clothes, however, were in the basement. She snuck into the house, stripped off all of her clothes, hid them, and then lay naked under the blankets for hours, including the hour I was sitting in my chair, mere feet away from her, playing Halo. At some point, she then snuck upstairs after we were out of the house. I guess Amanda had a mental breakdown and thought she could seduce John, which is what she thought he wanted from her. From what I hear, Amanda is now married and has at least 1 kid that I know of. John smoked one of Steven's cigarettes that day and has been a chronic smoker ever since. He likes to joke that when he gets lung cancer, it'll be her fault. This story is not as traumatic as it surely could have been, but I get this warm feeling in my stomach, like I'm gonna vomit, when I remember that someone was hiding just a few feet away from me, and I had no idea whatsoever. If her intentions had been something more sinister, she could have taken me by surprise. Since this incident, our home security has obviously improved, and I do hope Amanda is doing well. I can't imagine it's easy to have a mental break like that, but having your privacy violated is something that you don't forget. This happened when I was around 12. It was the middle of the night at my house. My dad had been working graveyard shift, and Mom is not in the picture. Since this was the weekend, it was somewhere between midnight and 1 a.m. My dad told me to lock the doors before I headed to bed, which I did. I was turning in for the night, and I went into my room, but I was only out for about an hour. Around 2 a.m., I woke up to the sound of knocking at the back door. I sat up in bed, taking a few minutes to process what I heard. I thought it might have been my dad knocking on the door. Maybe he got off early. I was really exhausted, and I knew that he had a house key on him, so I just told myself that he would unlock the door, not really thinking much of why he would be knocking. The knocking came again, but this time at a different location. It sounded like it was coming from the window in the kitchen. I continued to assure myself that it was my dad. I didn't understand why he couldn't just unlock the door himself. He always had a key on him, and if he had forgotten to take it with him, why hadn't he called me? In truth, I was coping. I didn't want to face the very real possibility that an unknown person was outside, trying to see if anyone was home. I was pretty freaked out by now, and there was no way I was answering the door. The knocking began again at another window. I was too scared to get up and check it out. It continued and eventually moved to the front door. It had gotten noticeably louder as well. I was frozen in fear. I couldn't move a muscle. My heart was pounding with every knock I heard, moving from one window to another. I knew that whoever was out there was getting closer and closer to my bedroom window, where my curtains were see-through. I didn't know what to do or say. I just stared out my window, knowing that at any second, the unwelcomed guest would appear. My heart stopped when I saw someone peering through. It was a very tall man wearing a mask. I could hardly make out the details because it was so dark, but I think his mask had some sort of skull design on it. He then tilted his head slightly when he noticed me in bed. I tried to scream, but nothing came out. I squeezed my eyes shut and started telling myself, "It's not real. It's not real," over and over again. I eventually opened my eyes and saw that there was no one there. I breathed a sigh of relief until I heard a whisper from outside. "I'm gonna cut you." I basically just laid there for the rest of the night until my dad came home. I have no history of experiencing sleep paralysis, and this felt very real. Whatever the case may be, it was one of the most frightening moments in my life, and I pray that I never have to deal with something like this ever again. It all started in the fall of 2016. I live in a small, quiet neighborhood surrounded by forest. It was unusually hot in our house for an October night. My sister figured it would be a good idea to keep her window open to get some fresh air. She was doing her homework, and I was getting ready for bed, when she suddenly bursts into my room and frantically said, "I think there's someone outside. There's leaves crunching under someone's foot." "Relax. It might be an animal or something." "Didn't sound like an animal. Can you just go and look?" So we walk into her room and stayed there for around 5 minutes until we heard leaves crunching underfoot. We quickly glance out the window, only to hear the steps picking up pace, running further into the trees. This would only be the beginning. During the winters, I often enjoy exploring the woods behind our house, climbing trees, and traveling further back to the fields. I remember this next incident very clearly. It had just snowed the night before, the first snowfall of winter, and I was more than excited to head out there that day. I climbed my usual tree and gave a cursory glance around me, then at the ground, when I noticed something strange. There were footprints leading away from my house. This wouldn't have been so weird if the footprints hadn't ended pointing straight at my house. I tracked them down to a point where there was a rusty wire fence. It was around there they disappeared. In hindsight, these first two incidents were foreshadowing something more ominous. Fast forward to October of 2017. The strange occurrences started up again. On the night in question, it was pitch black out. I was laying in bed when I heard my doorknob turning and my door slowly creaking open. I somehow knew it wasn't my sister or my parents. My heart stopped. Keep in mind that my door is always shut when I go to sleep. Once my door was fully opened, all was quiet. I quickly shot my sister a text. "Did you just come into my room?" "No, I'm in Hilliard right now." My heart began pumping fast. I slowly crept my hand under my pillow and grabbed the nightstick I kept there. I then sent a message to my dad. "Someone is in the house." Shortly after, my dad came into my room, armed with a knife. He turned on the lights, and I jumped out of my bed. But no one was there. We searched the entire house and didn't find anything. We set the alarm and made sure all the doors were locked. Living out here in the woods, we forget to lock up sometimes, and someone had been in our house and had opened my bedroom door. At the time, I didn't connect the dots to what happened the year before. In December of 2017, we had some relatives in town who were staying in our basement for the week. One night, we all headed to bed after arming the security alarm. I stayed up gaming, but I eventually passed out. It was around 2:30 to 3 o'clock in the morning when my uncle suddenly woke up with a feeling that someone was watching him. After his eyes adjusted to the dark, he saw someone. He described it as a scrawny man with flowing hair who appeared to be shivering from the wind outside as he was looking into the basement through a ground window. My uncle yelled, waking up his wife and child. Then they took off upstairs. The following morning, I was informed about what happened. I looked for footprints outside, but saw only the smallest signs of impressions. Whoever had been out here last night had done a pretty good job of covering their tracks. My uncle gave me more details when I spoke to him. He said the figure was leaning to the left while he was looking in. Sure enough, when I examined the area outside the basement window, there appeared to be an imprint of someone's left shoe in the snow that seemed to line up with what my uncle had told me. Now we get to what happened just the other night. I had some trouble going to sleep. There's a string of Christmas lights outside my room, and I figured the lights must have been interfering with me falling asleep. So I went to unplug them and headed back to my room. With the pillow over my head, I began slowly drifting off. Until it happened. There was a very quick strum of the acoustic guitar I keep in my room, followed by the sound of something falling over. The disturbance caused my heart rate to skyrocket. There was someone in my room. I then realized I had left my baton on my desk, so I did the next logical thing, pretended to be asleep. I lay there for what felt like hours, when in reality, it was probably only a few minutes, until I heard a whimper coming from my sister's room. Thinking that my family was going to be silently murdered, I gathered all the courage I had, grabbed my phone, and turned on the flashlight. I then grabbed my nightstick off the desk. I burst into my sister's room, only to see that she was unharmed. "What the fuck are you doing?" I just stood there and awkwardly explained to my sister what was going on. The whimper I heard was likely her forgetting to put in her headphones before watching videos on her laptop, if you know what I mean. I'm now just sitting here in my computer chair, writing these events down to document my experiences and try to come to some logical conclusion about all this. All I can come up with is that there is some unknown person who is stalking my family and has been for a while, and is somehow able to sneak into my room at night. If anything else happens, I'll be sure to post updates. But for now, I'm gonna try to get some sleep.